So let's start on our mushroom. So I'm going to start, and I've got another piece of card underneath, because alcohol pens will go through your cardstock. They're not going to bleed out these, because as we spoke about earlier, they've got exactly the right amount ink in for the density of the nib, but they are going to go from top to bottom. Not as quickly as others, but if you're doing a lot of blending, you're going to expect that. So that's why I've got another piece of card underneath. And you can see I'm just going around in small circles. When I get to these little markings on the toadstool, I'm trying to avoid them. If you get a little bit of red in there, it really doesn't matter, because as we showed you before, you can remove colour. And I'm just going to work logically. So I'm not doing a bit there and then going over and doing a bit here. I'm working logically. And what I tend to do is start at the bottom and work up. But you can see how slow I'm colouring and how I'm taking my time, and I'm just using the tip of that nib. And it was really interesting, you know, when I started to show these pens to some of the creative team here at Create and Craft, it was very interesting that they were really quick when they were colouring, and they also thought that they needed a finer nib. So they were expecting to have like a real fine tip on the other end. But because of the quality of this brush nib, and because you can literally lay down colour just by almost a whisper touch, if you like, of the brush nib, we didn't need a finer tip, because the brush nib is perfect for what we do. Card-wise, work on something that is meant for alcohol pens or ink. So having said that, definitely not pro paper, because pro paper is very different, and you'll find that the ink grabs because it holds the ink in place as it's put down, whereas with the Super Smooth it has that quality where it can go into the card but still give you that nice smooth lay down of colour. So find a card that you like. I tend to use the Super Smooth, but you'll find one that works for you. You may already have alcohol pens and you may already have that cardstock. It's not necessarily about that cardstock, it's about the quality of this brush nib and the ink. So we're not going to worry too much about that. And then I'm just going in these little teeny tiny places, and you can see I am literally touching the nib down very gently. And then when I get to a bigger area, I'm going back to my circles. Okay, so I'm just going to take my time and gently go along and colour this in. And I'm working backwards and forwards, just in a very logical way. And make sure that there aren't any white bits where you don't want them. Because let me tell you, if there are, when you finish colouring, you'll see the white bits. And we want to create with this almost an airbrushed finish. So that's what we are aiming for, okay? You'll also see, and this is something that I'd really like you to try because I found it made a massive difference to me, is I hold the pen as low down as I can, because then I have complete control over that brush nib and over that lay down of ink. And you can see if I did this, my hand would start to shake. You see how the nib of the pen is shaking there? I don't have control over that. So I hold it as far down the barrel as I can so that it's comfortable, and then go in and work with this fabulous brush nib. So I'm going to go quiet a little bit now so that you can concentrate. When I'm laying down here, you can also see that I am slightly going over where I've already been, and that is why it's really important that you have an alcohol pen, I think, that doesn't get darker. Because if we were going over certain areas now, you'd end up with a really patchy look, because the areas where you've doubled up the ink, if you like, will be darker already, and we don't want that. We want it to look like a single flat colour for now, because that's when the really creative bit comes in, when you start to add the mid and the dark colour, and you create that depth and that dimension. And that's what we're all about. It's a very mindful thing, very mindful process is colouring in. So slow down, enjoy the process, just concentrate on what you're doing. You're not thinking about what you've got to do tomorrow or what you've got to do for the kids or anything like that. You just literally, this is you time. And that's why I wanted to do this in real time. Yes, you can pause it and rewind it and revisit it, but I didn't want this process to be sped up, because I think if you're watching it sped up, it makes you want to speed up. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to slow down and really enjoy laying that colour down. And actually, when you're using a brush nib like this, it's an absolute pleasure. And you want to take your time because it just feels so good when you're laying down colour and it's not scratchy and it's not, uncomfortable to hold the pen. And that brush nib is just doing what you need it to do. You will be amazed at how good you are at colouring, even if you don't believe that right now. But I'm really hoping that you do, and that's why you've bought into this course, because I would almost guarantee, as close as I can to guarantee, that you will get the same results as I'll get. And that's not down to experience, that's down to the pens and the way that we're colouring and the way that we're using them. And anybody can do this. That's the great thing about it. It's just somewhere where you can go off and you can do 10 minutes at a time, you could do a half an hour, or you could do the whole thing in one go. It's entirely up to you. But it's just a lovely way to just switch off from everything else that's going on. Got my first layer down. It might still look like it's a little bit patchy, but once the alcohol has evaporated, you'll be left with that colour and it will be really smooth. All right, so then we're going to go to our next red and we're going to start to add in that mid colour. All right, so I'm going to go to number 15, which is slightly darker. And what I do before I start is I always lay down all the colours at the top of a spare piece of paper and I write what the number is at the top. So I can instantly look at these colours and know what colour I want to put where. And that will make more sense when we start to do the actual base of this mushroom here, because we're working with warm greys. Because we've only got 3 reds, we're going to use all 3, but it's nice just to see them laid out so you know what you're working with, if you like.